down to the 50s today. Well, that's pretty cold for us Floridians. But outside of that, I kind of wanted to talk about today the road to 100,000 invested. I think slash net worth, and how important I'm making it in my goal for this next couple of years. I would love for it to be able to get done this year, but I'd have to make quite a bit, obviously, after taxes and expenses and everything, to be able to invest that much. So I don't believe it'll be realistic to happen quite immediately this year, but it's worth aiming for that. There's been crazier things that's happened, so why not? But I wanted to talk about kind of those first steps to even get to where that is in your pipeline. And first, it starts with even making that a priority, to even thinking, or you kind of have to have it within you that you need to hit that 100,000, or whatever your first step is. I mean, everyone says the first 100,000 is the hardest, and so far that's holding up pretty true. It has been quite a struggle to build up even a fraction of that so far, and it's just because you have to build those money habits. And so I kind of want to go over some of the things that you can do to start going that direction, and I'm going to use my personal experiences to explain that. So the first thing would be, when you're just making regular 15 to 20 an hour, I believe is the kind of average rate for this area, at least anyways. I can't speak for the entire nation, world, but I believe that seems to be about the average rate for a low-skilled job. And you're maybe making 30,000 a year, working full-time, 30 to 40, more or less. I can't remember all the exact numbers, but when you're making that much, and let's say, a lot of people are living at home, and if you're able to do that and save up a ton of money, absolutely take advantage of it. And for, until you're in your mid-20s, after that point, I think maybe you should start looking to move out. But if you can make those sacrifices for those first 5 years of your 20s of living frugally and, dealing with living at home with your parents, which is becoming more normalized, staying with them for longer. So I don't think there's quite that much stigma anymore. So I think you should definitely take advantage of it while you can. Stack that cash, because you can always move out later. Like, it's not that big a deal. If you're already moved out, that's fine too. You'll always figure out a way to make that extra money that you need to make. So step one is to cut back on stuff that you think is necessary, and that you forget that you even purchased it. All those, like, do you really need to have a subscription for Hulu, HBO, Netflix, like every Disney Plus? Do you need every single streaming service? Are you really watching all of them? I am currently subscribed to only like 2. But if you're subscribed to every single one, you're paying $150 a month because you're subscribed to everything. Are you getting to all of that? And if you are, why? You shouldn't be. You should be doing something more than just watching, these TV shows and movies that come out. So I think that's the first step, is cutting out all those frivolous little things. And you'll know what they are when you look at them. You need to check your statements, see what's going in and out every month, and just have an idea. And the first step, honestly, is not even like, you don't want to be judging yourself and being, beating yourself up over it. Just see it, acknowledge it, and then the next step will come naturally. Because then once you're starting to acknowledge it and you see it, you'll kind of make that change internally to be like, oh man, yeah, I shouldn't be like spending that. This is kind of what I had to do when I was building up some money to get my first house. I had to shift my identity. You kind of have to take that on to really, if you want to make it powerful, if you want it to be something that's truly like you are defined by that, which is not a negative thing to, like, it's better than being defined like your personality is a junkie or lazy. It's way better to be defined as frugal and building something larger than yourself for your future. Like, that's a way better thing for people to associate you with than someone who's being frivolous and wasting your time and money. So, you kind of need to make that identity shift. And, when you go out, and you don't even need to necessarily totally cut out going out. I just got lucky that when I started doing it, it was in 2020. It was right at the start, right before COVID. I kind of started having, these changes, and I got very lucky that it was right when no one was really able to go out. So that helped save a ton of money. But even once, we returned to being able to go out to restaurants and stuff, if I went to a restaurant, I would not purchase any additional costs with the meal. Like, if I wanted to hang out with my friends, it was fine. You just don't buy that beer. You don't pay the beer price that is half of the cost of your meal. For what? For one beer that is not going to do anything anyway because you're eating with it. And if you want it to do something, the last thing you want to be doing is spending $8 to $10 a beer eating out on top of your food bill. That's how you rack that up so fast, especially if you're someone who goes out maybe Friday and Saturday, or even, multiple days of the week. Those bills are going to add way up. So that's the first thing you need to cut out and cut down on. And I think you can do it without totally sacrificing, everything. It is totally doable. Thankfully, the world's events made it convenient for me to cut that out. But it is something you can do with some discipline and thought, just like thoughtful execution. So that's the first thing, cutting that out, and that'll just bring you to the baseline of changing your mindset, and from there you build the actual cash. Because now that you're not spending so much, now you got room, you have some breathing room, you have an extra $500, an extra $1,000 a month. If you really can cut back on some of this stuff, you will notice you have way more money than you think you do. Let's say you're starting out pretty young and you only end up with an extra $500. That's awesome. $500 extra dollars a month when you're at that age and you're living at home with your parents, like, that's pretty good. And you can now take that and build your first, people keep saying your first $1,000 to $2,000. I think it should be $2,000 to $3,000 in like a high yield savings or something, as like an emergency fund to start with. I believe it should be a little bit higher with these things getting more expensive every day. It is not getting cheaper to fix your car or any kind of medical emergency. It's only getting more expensive. So I believe that bar, you should raise it a little bit. Once you hit that $2,000 to $3,000, $3,000 I think is truly ideal to just have sitting there as something that you leave for just in case, and you will feel a weight is now lifted off your shoulders. And you still have a lot more weights to lift, but right now that took off such immense pressure of living paycheck to paycheck. That plus and every step compounds. You remove those expenses that you were spending money on, you now have extra money every month. You now have money saved. That has now compounded. Each one compounds. It's just like compound interest, except it's compound interest for your mental state, for your mind, seeing opportunities. You leave that survival state where you can now see more opportunity because you're not just worried about trying to pay that next bill or just any little thing like that. Oh, look at that, sick. Oh man, I hope you guys see that in the camera. I think that was an old Firebird. Oh, or Camaro. That's so sick. Be seeing out in the morning. Anyway, yeah, so the next step after that, once you have that cash reserves, now you can start thinking about, how do I increase my income? $500 a month, $1,000 a month. 500 to 1,000 is a very good range to start. You'll find it's not that hard to make an extra $500 a month, even if you're, working at a job and you want to just do that and not find a side hustle. Although I highly recommend finding a side hustle, is work some overtime. I believe I saw the tax laws too. Now overtime is not taxed up to a certain amount, so take advantage of that. I was taxed heavily on the overtime I worked, and it made it feel pointless to work that overtime. But now with that new tax bill, I believe the big beautiful bill, it is now, you have a threshold of untaxed overtime, which is amazing. I can't believe that they have actually done something impactful for the workers with that. So, if you want to take that route, an extra $500 a month, just make those sacrifices, work those couple extra hours every day. I mean, right now, what are you doing with it? Are you just watching, random YouTube videos and, whatever other nonsense that you're kind of like taking up your time with? You're just watching, these random YouTube videos or all these different shows and stuff. Is that really a better use of your time than making extra money for your future? I don't know. I would say no, especially while you're young. You'll have plenty of time to watch these shows. They're not going to disappear. And I think a way better story that you'll be able to tell later in the future is look at the sacrifices I made and everything that I did to reach here. So, that's the next step, is finding that extra $500 to $1,000 a month, and don't increase the amount you're spending with that. Like, don't make an extra $500 and then spend an extra $400 or even that whole $500. So just keep trying to find ways to increase that. And it might feel like, oh, I can only find $500 to $1,000 a month with the resources that I have, and maybe it'll go on for 6 months. We're only able to increase it $1,000, and it's like that, a side hustle or something. It's a start, and don't be trying to chase the get rich quick stuff. All of that stuff, scam, courses, people trying to sell you, they're the ones getting rich off of you. So just don't take it slow, but don't be trying to skip ahead. Shortcuts don't actually work. So beyond that, now that you've got some extra cash, you've got cash laying around, the next step is getting to that $10,000 invested mark, not your emergency account, invested. That's going to be that first kind of milestone that, it's going to, hitting the 5 digits. You see 5 digits in one place and it feels different. It totally changes. You're like, wow, like this is, a 10% return this year on this $10,000 will net me a free extra $1,000, and I didn't do I won't have to do anything. It's already sitting there working for you. So I cut back on, all this extra spending stuff. I didn't buy anything. And I was working on my side hustle, and that was, giving me that extra $500 to $1,000, and then eventually it was $1,000 to $1,500 a month. That was kind of net after all the expenses for it. And that was helping so much when I was only making $15 an hour. That was an immense amount extra. That was a whole extra paycheck every month. I was getting 3 paychecks a month. And you just keep stacking those wins. So now from that 10,000, I'm on route now to the 25,000 mark. I'm almost a quarter of the way to the 100,000. And to get there, to expedite that, now that you've got your mindset in check, you've got that money locked in, you hit that first 10,000 from these couple years, 2-3 years of, being frugal, changing your mindset, looking for more opportunity. Now is the time where you have a cushion, you have a substantial, amount there to take on a little bit of risk in your life. And you've built these habits where you've lowered your expenses. You're either living at home or you switch from living by yourself to with a roommate. Cut your living costs in half so that you can take some opportunities that may pay less now, but have way more scale later. Whatever, sales. I'm just regurgitating the same. I'm sure you guys have heard the same thing, sales. But either that or some kind of side hustle, but your side hustle is sales. If you build your own business, you got to sell people on your service. You got to get clients, whatever in that space to make that extra money. But this is where you really need to start making your income higher. This is where you can start focusing on the fun part of actually enjoying the grind, because you have to, you now get to do something that actually makes you more money, which is the better feeling than just, being frugal, obviously. You want to make more money. Everyone wants to make more money so that they don't have to worry about where money's coming from. And now that you had that 10,000 and you're en route to 25, you can start focusing on how do I continue to add another 1,000 a month, And a really great way to do it is to frame it in a specific way. How do I make an extra $1,000 a month without adding that much more work to my plate? So, to reiterate, I'm gonna end it here soon. Build your first 2,000 to 3,000 in your emergency fund. Then, first cut your expenses. Then build your emergency fund. Once you have your emergency fund, you want to start figuring out ways to make a little extra money. From there, you're now stacking the cash so you can have $10,000 invested. And once you're at 10, then you have the room to start aggressively pursuing more income. And that's the way that you'll truly expedite reaching wealth and having the amount of money that you really, need. I use the word need. I know money doesn't bring happiness, and I understand that. Money doesn't buy happiness, but at the same time, money buys the ability to not feel unhappy in your day-to-day life. How do I put it? It's the money will allow you to not feel the crushing weight of just surviving every day. And that cannot be measured in money. But the only way to get that is with money. If that makes sense. Maybe I'm just rambling. But I hope you guys can take away something from this and use this as inspiration and maybe even a little bit of a path to get to that first 1 to 2,000, 2 to 3,000. It just keeps stacking itself, and your mindset will grow exponentially as you do that. And eventually, before you know it, you know, the time passed, and you doing those little things over a long period of time, suddenly you're gonna look up and you're gonna have way more money than you thought you could ever save and invest in your life. And you did that because of all the little steps and the little habits that you did every day, throwing in $5 into the stock market every day, or $25 a week, $50 a month, $100 a month. You know, it's the little steps that will get you to that goal, not trying to rush it. So I hope you guys learned something valuable from this, and that helps you in your journey from 0 to 100,000. Because I wish I had more of this when I was working my way to even where I am now. I'm not even at 100, but you know, get yourself around the right people that have a similar mindset. That will help a lot. That will expedite you getting to where you want to be. So peace, guys. I'll see you later. It's Daily Driven Classics.